I tip my Wild Turkey 101 in your direction. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another reaction video yet again. This is, how many of these have I done now? 28. I've done 28. This will be 29 of first reactions where I listen to an entire album front to back for the first time and give my first impressions. Keep in mind, these aren't my primary impressions and reactions. It's just my first. And I'll usually update in later videos the albums I just listened to prior so that I can update how I feel like a day, a week, a month later as to if things have grown on me or not. Case in point being The Queen is Dead by the Smiths. Was kind of neutral on it, didn't know how I felt the first time I heard it, and then within 2 days it was in my top 10 favorite albums. Nothing quite like that has happened since, but yeah, I've listened to a lot of great albums. A couple that I don't really like a whole lot. A good amount I think are okay, but there's quite a lot that are just fantastic. So I've been away for about 20 days-ish since I posted the last video of the Fishman's live album. I had my son, Owen. He was born May 20th, I believe. Yes, May 20th. About 2 weeks ago-ish from when I'm filming this. Born in the morning. Took about a week off of work, just relaxed, unwound. It was really nice. But now I'm back. I know, like, when we were having a second kid, I was thinking like, okay, so one kid is like 100% parenting. 2 kids, it might be like 200% parenting. So I was like, I gave warnings in the last video. I was like, I don't know if I'll be able to record anymore with how much I'll be busy with a second kid. Kind of find out it's like 120, 125%. Because the first kid trailblazes, and this one, it's like, it's a muscle you've worked out. So the first kid, you're lifting, 50 pounds. And this one you're lifting like 5 pounds, if that makes sense. It's like it's not working your muscles that hard having a second kid. So it's good. It's all good. I'm back at it, guys. Sorry for the long preamble, but I wanted to give an update as to where I was, all that. So Different Class is the album I'm doing now. I said this was going to be the next album like 2 albums ago, but I'm finally doing it. It was recommended to me in a Hangout, which is a stream that I do occasionally just off the cuff. I'll just live stream, talk to people, do individual song reactions, talk about music, Q&A, all that kind of stuff. And someone got talking about Pulp, and I listened to like bits of a couple songs and realized that Different Class would be a good album for me to listen to. 9.3 out of 10 on Pitchfork, of course. Britpop, art rock. Someone called it intelligent Britpop, which is like, well, Blur's pretty intelligent, but I'm interested to see like this kind of level. It's like, I enjoy Oasis to a degree. I like Blur a lot. I've never been into the Verve. So I'm interested to see the Pulp angle on Britpop. 52 minutes. There are 12 tracks. Yeah. I'm ready, guys. I'm excited. Actually, I remember thinking like, oh, I shouldn't do another reaction. It's just like, and getting set up is like the hardest part of the whole thing. It's like, I gotta go through that. But as soon as I sat down and the camera was on, I was like, I'm actually excited because I like doing these. I like actually like talking and listening, talking to the camera and listening to the music. It's just all the production, man, that goes into it. The editing and the physical setup that sucks. But the end product, it's kind of weird to look back and think like, I've been doing these since September of last year. I've made 28 of these. Well, technically 27 because there's a 2-parter in there. Like 27 albums. And I go back and look at the videos and I'm like, I can't believe I've made this many videos this quickly. I don't even remember editing most of them. And I don't even remember like the little moments where I listened. It's been a wild ride and it's not over yet. Pulp, Different Class, Misshapes. Let's just jump right in, guys.
Misshapes, mistakes, misfits. Brothers, sisters, can't you see? The future's owned by you and me. We're making a move, we're making it now. We're
So far, it's kind of like a mix between Oasis and Blur, where like Blur is a little unhinged sometimes and eccentric, whereas Oasis is like much more focused on being grounded and crafting, a basic song, a basic melody. But Blur manages to create like crazy melodies. And this kind of rides the line where it's like it's fairly grounded, but it shifts in and out of different dynamic phases in the song. It's like this isn't a song you would hear from Oasis, but it's not a song you would hear from Blur either. It's kind of the gray area so far.
All we weren't supposed to be. We want your homes, we want your lives, we want the things you won't allow us.
Not bad. It's kind of interesting to see where this fits in with the Britpop thing, because it was kind of infamous that 1994 was like the Britpop showdown, because you had Definitely Maybe by Oasis and Park Life by Blur. Just like that was the year, the battle of Britpop, right? Which honestly, Park Life, obviously, come on. But then a year later, this shows up, and it's kind of like in the dust of that battle, just kind of in the wake, and it doesn't seem to be. It seems to kind of say its own thing, whereas like Blur and Oasis definitely seem to kind of not parallel each other, but it's kind of hard to separate the two. Whereas this, like I hadn't even really heard of them before someone mentioned it in the chat. So it's kind of nice to have this kind of isolated Britpop to sample and see how it tastes. So Pencil Skirt, song number 2.
When you raise your pencil skirt, well, I know that you're engaged to him. I'll be around when he's not in town. Oh, I really love it.
Casual song about cheating and infidelity. Just kind of sneak it in there.
When you tell me to stop, but I've kissed your mother twice, and now I'm working on your dad. Oh, baby. I only come here 'cause I know it makes you sad. I would do it, oh, it's turning me on.
I gotta say, Pencil Skirt's severely underrated. If you don't know what one is, Google it and look at it, and you'll instantly realize, yeah, more women should wear them. It's a shame. It's part of a bygone era, man. Audrey Hepburn, rest in peace. Common People, this is like their big song. I've heard most of this, half of this, a few seconds of it. We'll see what the big deal is. Ranked by, what was it? Paste, called, ranked Common People at number 1 on its list of best Britpop songs.
Coca-Cola, she said fine.
I like this band more than Oasis. That's really safe to say.
I wanna live like common people. I wanna do whatever common people do. Common people like you.
He claims, the idea of this album is like, oh, we're a valid class of people, just because we're not rich or royalty doesn't mean we're not worthwhile. But secretly the whole album is about like, I just want to have sex with people who are in a higher class than I am. No, I'm just kidding.
What else could I do? I can't see anyone else smiling here.
This song's almost 6 minutes. Great production. You see, not to like diss on Oasis, because I feel like that's going to be the vibe people might get from me a lot. I certainly don't like Oasis as much as Blur. I just said I don't like Oasis as much as Pulp. Um, the production on both Blur and Pulp are so much more daring and driving and interesting than on Oasis. Oasis is just so basic, and I think that they thrive on the ability to just make really good melodies, good chord progressions, good melodies, and the Gallaghers are just strong at making songs and singing songs. Whereas with Pulp and Blur, it's so much more complex. I think, like I said, Pulp is kind of a middle ground. It's more accessible than Blur, I think, but there's so much more to sink your teeth into. It's like when you're listening to the song, you're like, "Ooh, that's an interesting sound. That's an interesting sound." By and large, you don't get that as much with Oasis. So, points to Pulp in that respect, because I always like when there's just interesting pedals used for guitars or effects put on guitars or bizarre instrument choices with just weird tinges to them. I like that a lot, and I'm getting it even from this basic song. So, good.
Oh yeah, you better live like common people. Sing along with the common people. Wanna live with common people like you. Wanna live with common people like you. La, 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 la. Oh yeah.
Kind of blown away because as I was listening to that, I was thinking like, are there key changes in there? Because it sounds like when it ramps up into the chorus, it's a key change almost because it's so drastic. But I looked it up. Nope, three chords for the whole song, 1, 4, and 5. Wow, great. I Spy. Oh,
I spy a boy, I spy a girl. Oh, but I'll get out. Oh yeah.
again, another thing that'll just come across as a diss to Oasis. Blur has such variety in the style. Like you listen to Oasis discography, and it's like Britpop. You listen to Blur, and it's like Britpop mainly. But it's like you get to albums like 13 and Think Tank, and it's like so forward thinking. Like any song off of 13 is crazy. Same with Think Tank. It's like I'm listening to this. I've listened to This Is Hardcore, like half of the song This Is Hardcore from their next album. And I hear this and I'm like, this is so outside the box. It's not like fit to just a basic pop structure, at least not right now. Yeah, I this along with Blur, this reminds me of Blur in terms of how they construct their songs. Because they don't fit to the box, you know? And I think the fact that this came a year after 1994 is kind of like an example, just goes to show like this is the response. This is, you know, different class.
Can't you see a giant world cannot fail? 'Cause I spy. Skillfully avoiding the doctor outside the corner shop. Imagining the blue plaque. 'Cause I've been sleeping with your wife for the past 16 weeks. Smoking your cigarettes.
Cool. 6 minutes long. I actually like that a lot. So just reading on the Wikipedia about the album cover, long story short, the photographer who was doing work with Blur, Elastica, and Pulp was friends with the groom of this wedding. And eventually the photographer, like a week before the wedding, said, yeah, Pulp wants a lot of pictures with real people, or some photos with real people in them, including a wedding photo. And he said, we can do this joke photo where we bring life-size cutouts of the band down to your wedding and just mix it in with the wedding procession. And he was like, sure, why not? And took the photos, and the rest is history. And I find that like really funny, actually, that there's like what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people that are cutouts in that picture, I think. I don't know. I've talked before, I don't remember which album it was, about how album covers impact the aesthetic of the album. And this is like a clear-cut case of it, where it's like, if I didn't have this album cover, I would have nothing to hinge all these songs on. It's weird. I want to know if you guys feel the same way. Let me know down below if, when you're listening to an album, if the album cover influences how you listen or what kind of mood. You know, it's almost like a, I don't know what a good analogy would be, but just kind of like here's just a little sample to start you. Like, this is the aesthetic or the mood or the vibe we want you to have. Just look at this image. Now listen to the audio, visual audio, and pin the audio to that visual and kind of use that to build what you experience out of it. Because honestly, like, some songs, actually, in this day and age, I don't know what songs I listen to where I don't know the album cover artwork. Like, when I listen to, it depends on the song. If the song is really strong, it can kind of transcend the artwork, like a single. Sometimes I've heard singles where I don't know what the album cover is or what album it's even from. It's just the song is that good. But more often than not, I know the album cover. And I always hinge the song around the album cover when I know it before I listen to the song. So I'm curious as to what you guys think about it, because I feel like that's very ubiquitous and common in music listeners to kind of just pin the song to that image and then cultivate their experience from that image through the song. So I'm curious to know what you guys think as far as how you process music in that way. Because I think that's an interesting story to just have, when there's an interesting story behind album artwork, I'm always right there. So yeah, cool. Good song. Disco 2000. This is a single.
Your name is Deborah. It never suited you when I came round to call. You didn't notice me at all. The year 2000 won't be strange when we're all fully grown. What are you doing Sunday, baby?
Much unlike Oasis or Blur, I feel like I'm just beating a dead horse when I keep referencing those two bands, but I feel like it makes sense to kind of explain how similar or different Pulp is from them as I go through this album. These songs, at least on this album, are very narrative driven. Pencil Skirt and Disco 2000, a little bit with Common People and I Spy, are very much like about a story, kind of like Lou Reed does with Velvet Underground, where the songs are like, they're not really super relatable to people. They're not vague. They're very specific. if you go on the Disco 2000 Wikipedia page, it talks about how it's kind of based upon a girl that Jarvis Cocker, the lead songwriter, frontman of Pulp, kind of based the song upon. And she would eventually grow up to get married and have children. It's a very specific song about a specific person, a very specific story. And you don't get that as much with Oasis. You get a little bit with Blur. Blur kind of, Damon Albarn will occasionally do that with songs. But so far, these songs on this album seem very specific, to the point where I was thinking during that song about like listenability and replayability. And I was thinking like, how often will I be able to come back to these songs? Because vague songs are easy to come back to, specific songs not so much. Like, just random example, Donna Man from Spiderland by Slint. Very narrative-driven song. And it's like, you have to be able to go back to that song the same way you would be able to go back to a movie. Where it's like, all right, I'm prepared for a narrative. Give it to me. Versus a song, which is usually about vague ideas and themes, That's what makes songs so easy, is that the lyrics more often than not are about something very intangible, or just kind of an overall theme that you can kind of pin it to something in your life. Whereas these so far feel very specific. So I was thinking like, how often can I re-listen to these songs at any given time? Which I find interesting. It's interesting to have a very narrative-based lyricist in a band. Velvet Underground obviously had that, and Pulp seems to have it as well. So that's interesting. Track number 6, Live Bed Show.
She doesn't have to go to work. This bed has seen it all. The neighbors didn't dare.
This band does it. I don't know if every band does it. This is a little music theory stuff for you. This band likes to do the major fifth of a minor chord, or a minor scale. So if you have A minor, the natural fifth would be an E minor. But if you have a major fifth, it'd be an E major. So, for example, A minor, which this song might be an A minor actually. And if you were to do a major fifth, like a major fifth wants to go back down to its minor first. I think House of the Rising Sun is a song that does that. Here's the major fifth, back down to the minor first. When you have a minor song and you throw in the major first, or the major fifth, which is pretty common, actually, it naturally wants to go back to that minor first, the tonic, A minor. I don't feel like Oasis did that very much. I don't feel like Blur has done that a lot. This seems to be a repeating thing for Pulp. I've noticed it in a couple of the other songs too. I'll try to point it out again when it happens in this song. Here's the major fifth, minor first. There you have it. I could be wrong, but I think they did a minor fifth instead of a major fifth somewhere in that song. An E minor. Whatever. I don't want to... I'm curious, actually, as to... Because I have, like, subscribers who follow me now for these reactions. Let me know in the comments how much you guys like the music theory part of my reactions. Because I know I did like the Fishman's album, I kind of gave a little bit of music theory about. The Spiritualized album, I gave some music theory about. Let me know if you guys like that, if it's understandable to some degree, or if you just find it interesting to know. I'm curious as to how much you guys latch on to that kind of information. So track 7, something changed. I listened to a little bit of this. It was like a live performance though. It was in the Hangout stream I did. So let's see what this one's like, just studio album wise. I remember that sentence being like a great paradox. I wrote this song 2 hours before we met. Like, logically, that just makes zero sense. Like, it could kind of work, but just when you first hear it, you're like, what? That's a great, like, opening line. Very brief song, but it's fine. I don't know if I'd like it as much as some of the other ones. It's hard to say. I kind of have to wait till the end of the album to judge all these tracks individually, because right now they're sort of. It's weird. I haven't had this with an album on this reaction series yet, where like each track is just laying down like an album feel rather than a track by track feel. Like, it's hard for me to talk about one track specifically, I feel like, until I get to the end. So we're just going to keep trucking. Sorted for Ease and Wizz. This is a single. Sure. What do we got? There it is. The song describes going to a rave somewhere in a field in Hampshire, taking drugs. Ease and Wizz refers to ecstasy and speed. Getting sorted means being adequately provided for, in this case having procured drugs for a concert. So they've been sorted, so they've acquired ecstasy and speed. The title of the track is Acquired Ecstasy and Speed. The latter part of the song discusses the emptiness of the experience and the come down the next morning. Okay, context received, progress. You may notice I'm eating a pull and peel Twizzlers, just biting it. And then I now have wine instead of Wild Turkey 101. I promise it's not a continuity error. That one was fine. I didn't like it as much as some of the other ones. Kind of like with Something Changed, a little bit with Live Med Show, where it's like, it's okay. Like I said, hard to kind of gauge these tracks individually. So we'll just keep going forward with Feeling Called Love, the most massive acronym in the world. This is 6 minutes long. It's only 6 minutes long because of the intro, right? I can never make a song like this without feeling incredibly pretentious.
It doesn't fit my plans, but I've got that taste in my mouth again. Oh yeah.
Well, that's interesting because that song was like almost a misstep. Pretty pretentious, if I have to go that far. Obviously, with the title. I like the lyrics. I like what it's trying to say. But it's just like, it's almost like it stumbles upon itself, just like it trips once overall. Just with how it delivers itself. But there is a lot I like about that one. Pretty solid, actually. 3 tracks left, guys. We're almost done. Underwear.
Why don't you shut the door and close the curtains? I couldn't stop it now. There's no way to get out. It's standing far too near. I'd give my whole life to see it. But just you.
I'm telling you, I said it before as a joke, but I'm starting. It sounds like Jarvis Cocker is just like in these really weird scenarios, sexual scenarios that are just like, ooh, no. And that's like most of what the album has been. Like Pencil Skirt, Kind of Common People, Feeling Called Love, Underwear, this one. It's like, dude, how are you in these situations? You should rethink your life. I thought this was an album about class and society, and yet half of it has been about your sexual exploits. It's just funny.
Stood there. How the hell did you get here? Semi-naked in somebody else's room. So why is it so hard for you to touch him? In your underwear.
Sometimes I listen to a song and I'm kind of like overwhelmed in terms of like what I want to say. It's like, where do I start? I think that song is actually great. I think it's fantastic. I can't tell. Is he like being like cucked, or is he like wishing he was there to see something? You know? Also, I gotta say, this cover. So there's the bride, and then 2 guys to the left is a cutout. I assume that's Jarvis. And every time I listen to a song, I just see him looking at the bride. And I like, that's like the crux of the song to me, is just him looking at the bride, thinking that that's the girl he's singing about. I can't get that out of my head. Yeah, Underwear was actually pretty good. I like that one a lot. He's a great lyricist. Like, I know it's in the vein of like narrative lyricists like Lou Reed, but I think that Jarvis is actually pretty solid, and he creates a really interesting image with the story to parallel to the music. Good. Monday morning, 2 songs left.
Why live in the world chest out. On your marks, get set, go!
Another song that uses the major fifth. So that's the penultimate song. That was actually probably my least favorite so far, but only because what it tried to do was done better in other songs in the album. It kind of felt like a culmination of the album, but just kind of like a pastiche or a collage of everything that had happened before. So it's like if I wanted someone to have a good sense of the album, I would probably show them this song. But it doesn't do what it tries to do as well as other songs collectively in the album, if that makes any kind of sense. It's okay, but my least favorite. Bar Italia, last song. Let's see how this album closes out, guys.
I would like to take you by the hand, just the word. Let's get.
They really like to use the major fifth, interestingly enough. To take you by the hand. Like I can tell the chords just listening to them the first time. But that major fifth keeps showing up in this album. And I'm curious as to whether or not that's like a staple of Pulp, if that's just through a lot of their songwriting. Because it seems like it's something they fall back on a lot, is the major fifth. Kind of resolving into the minor, either the minor first or the minor third of the album, or of the scale. But it's here in this song again as well. And it's a recurring thing I've seen in this album. So I find that intriguing. I don't think I've ever seen a band or an album that's relied on that so heavily, theory-wise. But it is an interesting choice.
Out of this place, you looking so confused, just what to do. Move, quick, you gotta move. Come on, it's through. If we get through this alive, I'll meet you next week. Where all the broken people go. Let's go.
And that is Different Class, everybody. I feel like this has been a very music theory rich episode of the first reaction series, where I've kind of shown how they like to rely on certain chords. And I showed how with Monday Morning, the penultimate track, they kind of hammered that home. And I think with their last song, they hammered it home even more. So, I think that kind of like music theory wise, they sort of were leading to a point with the last two tracks, especially the last track, where it was kind of a culmination of the music theory stuff they were playing with before. Maybe for someone not so music theory minded as I am, it might come across a little better, but for me, it kind of fell a little bit flat, where the last two tracks weren't as strong for me as some of the previous ones. But in a way, it made sense where it was leading, or that it culminated in that way. And I don't have a problem with it per se. But for me personally, the last two tracks weren't as good as some of the previous ones. Wow, what an interesting album. Britpop 1995. I definitely like it more than Definitely Maybe. I'll say that much. Personally, I like it more than Definitely Maybe. Do I like it more than Park Life? Possibly. We'll have to see how this sits. This is an interesting addition to the Britpop archive, that's for sure. So thank you for whoever recommended that I listen to Pulp in the Hangout. This was a good album to start with, I think. I don't know if I'll listen to any other ones on the channel. This Is Hardcore isn't supposed to be that amazing, so this seems to be their quintessential album. But it's a great album. It's a fantastic album. I will say that much. Pencil Skirt, Common People. I liked I Spy. Disco 2000 is really strong as well. Feeling Called Love, I'm mixed on, but there's part of me that really, really likes it, and there's part of me that really, really thinks it's pretentious. Underwear is actually really good. Yeah, this is a strong album. This is really strong. And I like where it lands historically as well. I find that really fascinating. So, yes, that is Pulp. I don't foresee myself listening to any other Pulp albums on this channel, but who knows? I might loop around to them in 15 years. Who knows? So, that is that. I've teased this on some of my streams, so some people might know it's coming. But my next album, I've decided my next album that I'll react to. Okay, so you guys can expect this. It's a big one. It's not Trout Mask Replica, sorry. I will do that one, but it's not that one yet. My next album is going to be Disintegration by The Cure. More or less, I think my Smiths videos have been the most viewed and the most interacted with on my channel. So I feel like some of my subscribers that have begun since I started doing these have been Smiths related subscribers. People who like Joy Division, the Smiths, and undoubtedly The Cure. And I even have compared the Smiths to The Cure in my Smiths videos. So, and I said before, like, Friday I'm in Love, I don't like it. Basically every Smiths song, all 3 or 4 of them that I've heard, I don't like a whole lot. But I have promised that I'm going to do Disintegration, which has Love Song, which I've heard at work, that plays at work, so I'm familiar with it. I don't think there's any other songs on that album that I'm familiar with, though. But that will be my next album, guys. So prepare for my first Cure reaction, which will be my next one. And after that, I have no idea. I don't know what I'm going to go to. Literally zero idea. I don't know if I want to downshift to dream pop or minimalism or upshift. Is that a word? To more intense stuff. I don't know. I do have in the description albums I will be reacting to, ones I have listened to. So if you guys want to recommend stuff to me, check that to see if I'm going to or have listened to it. And if I haven't, let me know if there's anything you guys want me to listen to. Yeah, that's it. I feel like this might be a long video. It's hard to tell. I'm a little inebriated for the better. Yeah, solid album from Pulp. And let me know what I should listen to next. That's it. So until next time, guys, until Disintegration, fare thee well.